Yeah, new frame, new lane, watch me shift it clean. One take, one spark right off the screen. Embrace variance, say it with me now. Embrace variance, we don't do the same sound. Embrace variance. Embrace variance. Embrace variance.
What's going on, everybody? And welcome to Embrace Variance, a plus EV decision. My name is Sabu, and welcome to my channel. Today we're going to be talking everything pre-flop. The way that I like to refer to it is our pre-flop Bible, because no matter how good that you get at poker, no matter how studied you become, pre-flop is always something that you want to take a look at because it is one of the easiest things to fix, and it is one of the quickest ways for you to make more money at poker depending on the game that you're playing. Pre-flop adjustments are very simple. You know which hands you're supposed to be folding, and you know which hands you're supposed to be playing. Today we're going to go over every single one of those spots. If this sounds good to you, continue on. Before we even jump into any of the charts or any of the positions that we're going to be looking at today, the very first thing that I want to say to you guys is everybody needs to eliminate limping from their strategy. If you don't know what a limp is where you just call the blind. This channel, and just about every other good poker player out there, is going to be playing a raise first in strategy. So if you hear me say the acronym RFI, that's what it means. It means raise first in. It means anytime that we enter the pot, we are going to be doing so with an aggressive action. We're not going to just be calling the blind and following along with the other bad players at the table. The people who limp in low stakes games are the type of players that we want to target to make money off of. So you're going to see the better players at your table either playing a raise first in, 3-bet, or fold strategy. So right off the rip, just eliminate limping. There's no room for it here anymore. All right, guys, so before we jump right into the under the gun position, I just want to make a quick disclaimer, because there's going to be some people who may question, the validity of what I'm saying due to the amount of charts that are out there. So there's charts for 100 big blinds, there's charts for 200 big blinds, there's charts for 3 bets, there's charts for 4 bets. Today, what we're going to be focusing on is opening ranges. So we're not going to be talking about 3 betting and 4 betting. I'll make a separate video covering those topics. But today we're specifically going to be looking at opening ranges from under the gun all the way to the small blind when we do some blind versus blind stuff. And we're going to be talking about 200 big blinds effective. I'll go over a little bit in these hands what my adjustment would be if I was at 100 big blinds, because those are the stack depths that you're usually going to find yourself in, is going to be somewhere between 100 and 200 big blinds. So just for the video's purpose, just assume that all hands are played at 200 big blinds effective. All right, guys, let's get started. So what you're looking at here is a hand chart. So if you guys have never seen one of these before, I'm sure many of you have. The idea behind these is that the very upper part of that chart, the upper left-hand part of the chart, is all of our best hands. We have aces, kings, ace king, ace queen, and then as you make your way toward the right hand side and more toward the bottom part, that's where the junk is, the 6-2 offsuit, the 7-3 suited, and so the suited hands are going to be more toward the upper right side, and the unsuited stuff is going to be more toward the left side, the lower left side. So that's just the chart itself and what it's there for. The other thing you're going to notice is that some of the blocks that these hands are contained in, some of them are like 50% highlighted or 30% highlighted, and that's going to be a pattern that you see throughout this, because in poker, we don't do everything at 100% frequency. So you're going to have to be the judge of how often that you open these hands, depending on the type of table that you're at. So let's just get right into it. So, under the gun, we're obviously opening all the good stuff, the aces, the kings, all of our pairs down to pocket sevens. And then you see pocket sixes there. It's shaded a little bit because we do want to mix in some opens with that. It can be profitable if we open it sometimes. And then we have some suited aces. Suited aces are always good. They can make the nut flush. And then you have some suited broadways. And then you have literally one suited connector, and that is 6-5 suited. And I want to explain the idea behind 6-5 suited, because this was always very interesting to me when I first opened up these charts. 6-5 suited is a very powerful hand in poker, and not a lot of people realize this. It makes the top end of the straight on the low boards, so like the 2, 3, 4. You're protected against hands like ace-4 suited, ace-3 suited, those really good wheel ace hands that could make the straight to the 5. Well, we can make the straight to the 6. It can make flushes. It performs really well on low boards. And then if we are also using it as a mix with a 3-bet when we start to get into that, we can also represent the higher boards when we 3-bet this hand. So we have board coverage all throughout. So we can represent, you know, the ace-king 9 board, and we can actually have board coverage with the boards that come like 5 deuce deuce, right? So that's 6-5 is a very powerful hand, obviously the suited variety. So if you take a look at the under the gun range, it's actually very, very, very condensed. There's not a lot of hands here that we're playing. The only suited connectors that you really see us opening here are 10-9 suited. Again, a very powerful hand because it makes the top end of the straight in the middling part. It somewhat connects with the jack, the queen, the king. It can make flushes, so 10-9 suited for me anyway is an open from any position. It can be somewhat player dependent, but it's proven that it is a profitable open from under the gun. And then you see a hand like ace-6 suited. So why is it that ace-6 suited is only shaded a little bit, but ace-5 and ace-4 suited? Again, it's the same theory. It's that ace-5 and ace-4 make those wheel straights, right? Ace-6 is not going to make the wheel straight. So same thing with ace-4, and then ace-3 is a little bit weaker just because the 3 is a little bit lower than the 5. But if you take a look at some of the solving charts, ace-5 suited is actually one of our main candidates to 3-bet and 4-bet bluff with. When we start 4-betting aces and kings, well, you know, in order to keep our opponents on their toes, every time we 4-bet, it can't just be aces or kings or our opponents can overfold. So the idea is to throw some of these suited wheel aces, well, 1, because they're pretty powerful hands, and 2, because they have that ace in your hand that blocks your opponent from possibly having an ace. So that's the idea behind that. But yeah, this is the under the gun range. It's very tight. It can get very boring from under the gun when you're playing properly. But stick to these hands under the gun, especially in the beginning, and you'll see your win rate skyrocket from this position. All right, guys, so moving on, we're going to talk about the +1, or sometimes it's referred to as the lowjack, depending on how many people are at your table. So you see in this chart here, we start to open it up a little bit more. Like we start to open some king 9 suited at some frequency. We open jack 9 suited at some frequency. We mix in some ace jack offsuit. And then we're opening all of our suited aces down to ace 3. We start to incorporate some pocket 5s. But the big takeaway between these two positions that I think the mistake that a lot of newer players make in these early positions is that we're not opening any of these offsuit Broadway hands. So newer players get dealt a hand like king jack offsuit or king 10 offsuit, and they assume it's pretty strong because it's 2 Broadway cards. The problem in today's game is that good studied players are playing a 3-better fold strategy after you open from early position. So if we open a hand like king 10 offsuit from under the gun or the +1, and we get 3-bet by the cutoff, we're not particularly happy to either continue with a call or even 4-bet that hand for that matter, because a lot of the time the hands, especially at low stakes, most of the time when they're 3-betting, it's very nutted. And the hands that they're 3-betting are going to have us absolutely crushed. They're going to be hands like king queen suited, and that's going to be the bottom of it. It's going to be kings, it's going to be ace king suited, it's going to be ace queen, and these hands just have those offsuit Broadways in a really, really tough spot. And if you go and you flop top pair, say you open king 10 suited, and somebody 3-bets from the button, you know, so it's not as scary, but they 3-bet from the button, we call, and the flop comes king deuce 3, and a lot of money starts to go into the pot, more than likely you're out kicked in that situation, and it all could have been avoided by folding pre-flop. So the idea is just to release them in these early positions. You're not losing any money by folding them. And we can start to open up our range as we get in position more. Because again, if we get 3-bet from someone, you know, either whoever's behind us, they're going to be in position against us in the hand too, which is a humongous advantage. So the important part is just release some of these offsuit broadways and stick to more of the suited aces, the pairs, and your good suited broadways, and a little bit of like the king 9 suited, the jack 9 suited, and the ace jack offsuit, just to throw in some of the worse hands in that spot too. All right, guys, now we're going to take a look at the low jack position. So this is the position directly after the +1. So again, we're going in sequential order. I don't know if I have to keep saying that, but just in case, you know, it's hard to follow along or you're not as used to it or whatever the case is, I'll just keep repeating that. If you have the idea that the closer to the button that you get, the more that you're able to open, you're going to be in good shape. But if you really want to hone in on the details, like the low jack, like in the low jack, we can start to open some hands like king 7 suited. When I first saw these charts, I thought that was pretty wide for the low jack, but it is profitable in some configurations. And then we start to open a hand like 10-8 suited. The suited connectors really start to come in. I know a lot of poker players who love suited connectors, and they think it's an absolute crime to fold these hands from the earlier positions, but you're burning money by doing that, by opening hands like 7-8 suited, and they look pretty. They do. They look really pretty, and there's a time and place for them, but it's not in these earlier positions. These earlier positions, we have to be relatively tight. And that's the idea behind these, is that tighter is better from early position. Most of the time when we enter a pot, we're going to be out of position, and these are the hands that perform better when we are out of position. So again, here in the low jack, we're open all of our suited aces at this point. We start to work in some ace 10 offsuit. We're opening all of our pairs down to the 5s. We're opening pocket 4s at some frequency now, and we start to incorporate some of that suited connector stuff. Like we're starting to incorporate 7-6 suited. We're starting to incorporate a little bit of 10-8 suited. Jack 9 was in there before, but you know, we start to open some queen 9, king 9 suited is open at full frequency at this point, and we start to work in a little bit of the offsuit broadways. In particular, king jack offsuit and ace 10 offsuit. So that's the low jack. Now we're going to move on to the hijack. So the hijack, again, is the position right after the low jack. This is where I start to really open up my range. And I just want to make a quick disclaimer that I don't know if I said at the beginning of these videos. These charts all fall under the assumption that the action has been folded to us. So we're not opening these hands if there was a limp. If there was a raise in front of us, obviously it would be a 3-bet at that point. But these charts all assume that the action was folded to the position that we're looking at. So if we're in the hijack here, that means that the under the gun, the +1, and the low jack all folded. If any of those positions enter the pot, it changes the equation completely. These are all just opening ranges. That's why we call it opening, because we would be the first to enter the pot. So again, these are all under the assumption that the action has folded to us. And this is where you can really start to open up your range a little bit. This is where poker becomes pretty fun. So the big changes on here, we're opening all of our pairs down to 3s at some frequency. We get to start opening some hands like king 6 suited. We get to open all of our strong 9x, the ace 9, or the queen 9, jack 9, 10 9, Those are all full frequency at this point. We start to mix in some King Jack offsuit, pretty close to full frequency. We're mixing in some King 10 off here. We're mixing in some Queen Jack off. Queen Jack, not as much as the other two. It's a little bit weaker and can make some bad straights. So we prefer to use the Ace 10 and the King Jack rather than the Queen Jack, because it can be dominated at times by hands. We're still folding hands like Queen 10 offsuit. We're still folding hands like Jack 10 offsuit. Some of the suited connectors, we start to open 7-6 at almost full frequency at this point. And we start to incorporate some of the 5-4 suiteds as some of our bluff opens, depending how tight the table is. We start to incorporate a little bit of King 5 suited. And this is where it starts to get fun, you know, when you turn over a hand like 5-4 suited and everyone's expecting you to have two big Broadway cards, and the look on their faces when you take down a pot and you win it with 5 high, or you win it with a pair of 4s, or whatever the case is. They're not expecting it. So this is where we start to incorporate more of the lesser hands into our range. So the cutoff, it becomes even more fun. This is where things get really interesting. The cutoff is where things really start to pick up. Again, we are assuming that the action has folded to us in the cutoff, and I think this cutoff range is actually closer to what a recreational player's opening range is from like the +1 or the low jack. I think this is a really good representation of the hands that a lot of recreational players will open from early position. I see it all the time. Recreational players opening hands like Jack 8 suited, or Queen 10 offsuit, or Queen Jack offsuit at full frequency from early position. And we just explained why we don't do those things anymore. But when players start to open those shitty hands from early position, that's where we make money. So we encourage them to open these hands from early positions. But this is where it gets fun. So we're opening our suited connectors, our 10-9, 9-8, 8-7, 7-6, 6-5, 5-4 at full frequency from the cutoff. So again, the reason for this is now we only have the button, the small blind, and the big blind to worry about. We only have 6 cards to worry about behind us. So think about how often in poker that you're actually dealt a good hand. We do a lot of folding. So the odds are that 3 players behind us probably don't have that upper left-hand portion of the hand chart. So again, the closer we get to the button, the lesser amount of players that are behind us, the more hands we can profitably open. And even if we just open and take down the blinds with a hand like 9-7 suited, we just want to pot with 9 high. You do that enough times in an hour, and that's how your hourly skyrockets. You're not paying any rake. You're not having to fight for the pot, and you just want to pot with 9 high. And a lot of people think that winning in poker comes from outplaying your opponent or beating a bunch of opponent in multi-way pots, and you know that stuff is hard. That stuff is hard to beat your opponents or multiple opponents at that. Whereas if you start to open the correct frequency of hands from later position, especially if you have a tighter image and you're at a tighter table, and you're just going to get auto folds from these people who are just not defending enough. And that's the key there, is that the button, the small blind, and the big blind in lower stakes, they're not going to defend wide enough for you to not be able to open these hands. And in lower stakes, you might even be able to get away with a little bit more than this. I think I do a little bit, like if I'm playing 1-2 or 1-3, I can tell you right now I'm opening Queen 7 suited from the cutoff. I'm probably opening Jack 7 suited. I'm probably opening King 9 offsuit. I'm probably opening Ace 8 offsuit. But that's because I'm confident in my post-flop game. But these, you know, if you want to take these charts at face value and just use them as a strict guideline, you're still going to take down pots a lot pre-flop. So that's the idea here. We start to get really wide. we start to take down the blinds, but the hands that we do choose to play, they have playability post-flop. 9-7 suited, 10-7 suited, 10-9, 10-8, 6-5, 7-6, 5-4. The suited kings make really good flushes. The suited aces make really good flushes, or the best flushes. Yeah, our hands that we're still choosing to open, they have good playability post-flop, because if we do get called, we do want to have some maneuverability post-flop. So it's just about choosing the correct hands from these later positions to open and not being too tight. That's going to be the key theme. It's whereas in earlier position, we wanted to be as tight as we could possibly be. And then the closer to the button that we get, we want to expand our range, because we want to start taking down the blinds. We want to start making these guys auto-fold hands. Like if we open 10-8 suited from the cutoff and the small blind folds queen jack offsuit, that's a win. That's a really big win for us. And another reason why we can open these shittier hands is because we are probably going to be in position. We only have one person in position to us at the whole table, which is the most important thing, is that we are more than likely going to be in position if we do go post. But anyway, let's move on to the button here. So this is where it gets really fun. You guys can see we're opening a ton of hands from the button. I'm not going to go through each one. You guys can screenshot this and look at it at your own leisure. But and I just want to say that I actually play even wider from the button, but I didn't want to set a bad example for you guys and put what I actually play from the button, because if I have two recreational players in the blinds, most of the time I'm opening any two cards from the button. And the reason for that is because I trust myself post-flop. I'm not gonna get a bunch of money in with a bad top pair or whatever the case may be. I trust my post-flop game. So if you do, then by all means, really light it up from the button, because this is the best position at the poker table. You have ultimate last action, and ultimate last action in poker is everything. Position is power. I think I may do a whole video on position, just because it is so important. And if you don't understand the importance of position in poker, then you're leaving money on the table as it is. So me as a player, I'm opening even wider than this, especially when there's recreational players in the blinds. But if I were playing against competent study players, this is about what my range would look like. As far down as like 10-5 suited, 5-3 suited, anything with an ace in it, any suited queen, some of the offsuit stuff, 10-8 offsuit. The reason for that is it plays well post-flop. And again, we're just going to be in ultimate last position. So this is where you can really experiment in poker and really make it fun, like opening hands like 9-3 suited or whatever the case is, as long as you're comfortable in your post-flop play. And I will be doing a couple videos on post-flop. That way we can level up your game in that way too. But this is what a opening range from the button. Again, we're assuming that the action is folded to us, and that there's only the small blind and the big blind left to act, who are both at a disadvantage due to the fact that we are in position to both of them. And if I think I have a skill edge over those two players, again, I'm probably opening any two cards, but I didn't want to set a bad example for you guys. So this is my button opening range. Moving on here, the very last thing that we're going to talk about here is the small blind. We'll save the big blind for a different day when we're talking about defending, because that's what a lot of the big blind will do. And even in the small blind, if we're facing action that's not a fold before it gets to the small blind, then we're playing 3-better fold from the small blind. But this is assuming that you're going to be playing blind versus blind play. And at a lot of casinos and a lot of live games, a lot of the time, if it folds to the blinds, most casinos allow you to chop the pot. Always chop the pot, guys. Don't let the casino take rake. Don't be that guy that's like, oh, I don't chop. I don't want to chop with anybody. Just chop the pot. You're not paying rake. And just move on. Eliminate the ego. And just move on to the next hand. If you're in the small blind and it folds to you and the guy next to you is cool enough to be like, let's chop, pull your blinds back and get ready to play the button. Just my recommendation. I know some people don't chop and I'll never understand it. The only people that win in a blind versus blind game in a casino, especially at low stakes, is the house. Like that's the only winner there. But if for some reason you are in a place that will not allow you to chop, I played in some places that won't allow you to chop. This is kind of the range that I'm going to be using. So the idea here, blind versus blind, is that we don't just want to be raising our good stuff and limping our weak stuff. You want to have like a mix. You don't need to follow this to a T. This looks pretty complicated, and it kind of is. But this is what my blind versus blind range would look like when I'm in the small blind. Now my defend range is going to be a little bit different. What I call, what I 3-bet, and what I do based off the person that I'm against and the cards that I have. But you can see at this chart here, like I am not raising pocket aces at full frequency. I'm limping aces at some frequency. I'm limping kings pretty much every time. I am limping queens half the time. I am limping king queen. I'm limping ace jack. But I'm raising jack 10 suited, queen 10 suited, king 10 suited. I'm limping all the suited kings because most of the time when you're in a blind versus blind, so you the small blind versus your opponent the big blind, you have to think that the average strength of hand that is dealt in poker is queen 7 offsuit. They call that the computer hand because that's the average strength of hand that you're dealt, right? So if queen 7 is the average, what's your opponent most likely holding? Queen 7 or worse, right? So if you think about it like that, and you get dealt pocket 10s in a blind versus blind situation, and you raise, what's your opponent most likely going to do? They're probably going to fold. Now, this is very opponent dependent, right? And I will say that a lot of people do over defend in these types of situations. So if you have somebody who is more studied, more aggressive, whatever the case is, and you think that they're just not going to fold because it's a blind versus blind situation, have at them. Have at them. But if you have a very passive player and you have somebody who's just going to not defend a hand like 6-4 suited and you have pocket 10s and they're just going to toss it in the muck, limping may be a good strategy because then you get to the flop and say the flop comes, 6-2-2 with a flush draw, and now they have top pair and a flush draw, and you can play a pretty big pot blind versus blind, or whatever the case may be. So, incorporate a little bit of limping with good hands, a little bit of limping with great hands, a little bit of limping with junk, a little bit of raising with good hands, a little bit of limping with a little bit of raising with great hands, and yeah, and that's the way to do it, blind versus blind, and that is solver approved. You won't hear me say that too much, but that's the idea. So yeah, just play a very mixed strategy, blind versus blind. And this goes for online as well. If you are signed up to WPT Gold or you play in America's Card Room or any of these other places, if you online, you are forced to play blind versus blind. So it is good practice to do it on there. But yeah, this is what my small blind range opening / limping range would be, blind versus blind. All right, guys, I'm going to see how much you were paying attention for the past 30 minutes. I know that was a long video. So question number 1, you get dealt ace jack offsuit under the gun. What's your move? Ace jack offsuit is a fold, guys. We do not open ace-jack offsuit under the gun. Question number 2. You get dealt king-jack offsuit in the low jack. What is your move? King-jack offsuit is another fold, guys. If you guessed fold, you guessed correct. So the next one is going to be 8-5 suited on the button. It folds to you. Is this an open or is this a fold? 8-5 suited on the button is an open, guys. We are opening this hand when it folds to us on the button. You ready for a bonus question? Why do we limp really strong hands when we are playing blind versus blind? Think about that one for a minute. So we limp some strong hands when we are playing blind versus blind because our opponent is likely holding a really weak hand. The other reason is because if we only raise our strong stuff and limp our weak stuff, we are incredibly easy to play against. If you got that one right, you were really paying attention. Tell me, guys, what was your score? Did you get 100%? Did you get 3 right? Did you get 2 right? Did you get any of them right? Let me know in the comments. Let me know what your score is. I know that for a lot of you guys, this is probably very elementary, but it's a good place to start if you really need to brush up on the basics. There's nothing wrong with going back to the fundamentals, and that's exactly what we did today. If you got them all right, I'll send you a lollipop in the mail. Send me your address and let me know what your favorite lollipop flavor is. I'm a green apple guy myself. So let me know in the comments if you got all the questions right and your lollipop will be delivered. That's all I got for you today. I really hope that, if anything, this video made it so that you understand the hands we're supposed to be playing and the hands that we're supposed to be folding. I know when I first looked at these charts, it was very eye-opening for me when I started to see some of the hands that I was playing in early position and some of the hands that I was folding in later positions. And you guys would be surprised to know how much money that you're actually either burning or missing out on because you're not doing one enough or you're doing one too much. So if you're a newer player, take these charts and take them exactly for face value. Play the hands that you're supposed to play according to the charts in whatever position that you're in. And give it a couple months and you'll see a significant difference in your win rate. Preflop play is one of the quickest and easiest adjustments that you could make to your poker game to ensure that you increase your hourly win rate. So like I said, take these charts, take a look at them, and incorporate them into your game. For the next video, we're going to start looking into flop play. We're going to start breaking down the different types of flops, what hands we want to be c-betting with, what hands we want to be bluffing, what hands that we need to be value betting, and everything that has to do with the flop. So again, I thank you so much for watching my channel. Your support means the absolute world to me. Drop a like, leave a comment, let me know what you thought of these charts. If you think that they're too wide, if they're too tight, if they're just complete garbage, let me know. Let me know what you guys think. But again, thank you so much for watching my channel. And remember, embrace variance.
Embrace variance. Embrace variance. Embrace variance. Embrace variance. Embrace variance. Embrace variance.